And so, it begins. Dark were the skies, and chill was the wind, as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. The date today is the 23rd of October, 2009. It is 8 p.m. British Standard Time. It's 3 p.m. EST. In other places, it may be other times. So I've been told. We've sent out an expedition to find out whether or not this is the case. They will report back with their findings. In the meantime, I have a show to do. And what do I have coming up for you in said show today? I could tell you, but then that would ruin the surprise, wouldn't it? But since I'm all about ruining surprises and bringing disappointment into your miserable lives, that's exactly what I'm going to do. This week on Blue Please. Stuff! And possibly other things. So, Blizzard did something very foolish. They do this a lot. They decided to use Twitter to have a developer chat. Which meant that basically my Twitter became unusable for 2 hours because they spammed it with nonsense. Yay! If I wanted to be spammed with nonsense, I'd read WoW General. Oh well, never mind. There is a bunch of very, very short questions and very, very short answers. We're gonna go through them. We're gonna find the interesting ones. We're gonna talk about various choice quotes, some of which I do not much like. At all. At all. We'll find that out a little bit later on in the show. And of course, your chance to contribute to the show. The illusion of choice. Email themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com for your chance to contribute to the show. It's not really much of a prize, I guess. Sort of like a little bit of bragging rights. Yay, I got a question on Blue Please. Yeah, it's like the worst prize ever. It's like opening your presents at Christmas around the tree with your family's beaming smiles on all sides, and inside what do you find but a wet flannel? And you try and put on a brave face as your grandmother beams particularly, because she was the one who made you that flannel. And to ensure that it is ready for use immediately, she pre-soaked it before wrapping it. But inside, you feel nothing but ire, anger, rage, despair, and suffering. And that is what the illusion of choice basically is. Suffering. Email themurloc@gmail.com for your dose of suffering. I'll pick the best one, or perhaps the worst one, and talk about it at the end of the show. Do we have Nubcake News? Yes, we do. Do we have Ask the Murloc? Yes, we do. Are we going to do Ask the Murloc live because you guys, for some reason, seemed to like it the last time we did it? Yes, we are.
Ask the Murloc.
You're going to have to wait for that one. I would suggest, if you want to get involved in the live Ask the Murloc, you get in the IRC channel, irc.mmo, irc.com, # WOW Radio. Yes, indeed. #WOW Radio. Or click the chat button at the top of the screen on wcradio.com, which, yes, has been down for a day and a bit. To answer questions, there is no mystery behind Blizzard Radio. It just happens to be another domain we own. We own quite a lot. You would be surprised how many we have. Site went down, we had to redirect to another domain, you know, the business. Booking about, etc, etc. Oh well. Now, I would like to remind all of you that tonight is the last WoW Things Considered. Yes, that's very disappointing for a lot of people, I know. It's the last WoW Things Considered. Cadwallian is leaving the station because you may be aware he has a spawn on the way. Yes, real-life spawn. So he's going to have to be dedicating time to that. And he's interested in getting involved in other open source projects. We wish him the very best of luck for that. So you'll want to be listening to that. If Wild Things Considered is something that you've been enjoying over the past few years, it's probably the longest running show we have in terms of shows that have gone on without interruption. Check that out. That's midnight tonight BST or 7 PM Eastern Standard Time on WCRadio.com. And of course, if you're worried that Dunkor will disappear, he will not. He's got his other show. He doesn't really play WoW much anymore, so it's probably best that he talks about something else, and that was his idea as well. He does a show with Speedy and Railvass. It's called Just Cool Enough on justcoolenough.com. Go and have a look at that after this show is done. Are you sitting comfortably? I hope so. The Murloc doesn't. But we're not going to hear from him for a little while. A little bit later in the show, perhaps. So without further ado, it's time for this.
That sounds like it's mail time. Here's the mail.
Oh, it never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Yes, it's mail time. It's where we read the mail. It's exciting, isn't it? You're thrilled, I can tell. Your excitement permeates through the screen, soaks through the internet, oozes out of every orifice. Maybe not. Here we go. Here's an email. This one's controversial. I like things like that. Someone trying to contradict what I'm saying. That's always good. I like debate, folks. I love it. Discussion is fantastic, particularly with people that can string a sentence together. It's not something you really get very often. You'll be aware of that, of course, if you ever venture on the WoW Journal. I accidentally went there yesterday. Big idea. I had this grand scheme. But it turns out it wasn't really a big idea. It was a bad idea. That place, you feel dirty. Ugh. Can't wash the stench and the stink of failure off you. Cesspit, that's what it is. However, this email is not an intellectual disaster area, so here we go. It's from Mike Emony. He says this: Hey TB, straight to the point. Okay. I was listening to You Please, where you tackled the question, is the PTR a good thing? Your response was to suggest that Blizzard has enough money and capable... What's that? Capable to staff. I assume capable staff to manage their own internal testing of content, and therefore there is no reason to get the public involved whatsoever. In terms of balancing and strategy, I appreciate your point. I don't entirely disagree with where you're coming from. In terms of the idea that the public should not get involved, though, I must say I do disagree with you completely. With a player base in the multiple millions, it is impossible for Blizzard to test the many different PC setups that are out there in the world. Imagine trying to see how well your game ran with graphics card X running alongside sound card Y and Z amount of RAM. A mind-boggling amount of combinations exist, and the only way to identify any potential problems before settling on a global release is to run this sort of massive public test. With Blizzard freely snooping your machine for stats and performance, they could build an idea of how to address any problems that might crop up if they run with the game as they crafted it thus far. Of course, they're not always perfect. Mistakes have been made in the past, and when they do happen, you should rightly question what the hell Blizzard are playing at when they have run such a PTR and missed something. On the whole, though, I feel the PTR does offer a valid testing ground for Blizzard's content, and they should not be snubbed for making use of those players that are inclined to jump in. Testers are great, but since I work in the industry myself, I know how easy it can be for testers to miss something blindingly obvious. When you spend time with the game all day, every day is not unreasonable for a tester to fall into a groove. They should do what they can to refresh their point of view of the game they are testing, but nothing beats a fresh set of eyes on a job. Having X amount of players turn up to your encounter and see them do wildly different things is, again, the only way Blizzard can guarantee they'll explode every angle. I am sure there are more reasons I could go into, but this mail is already at risk of being judged a wall of text. Thanks for your time. I don't think anyone's ever described the PTR as useless. Of course, it's handy. And yes, it's great for dealing with the possibility of having to look at different hardware setups and thinking, oh, well, something could be going horribly, horribly wrong. Well, yes, it could. But I must say, there's a lot of other games that don't require this massive testing on a global scale. Now, sure, there are buggy games, all that kind of thing, but WoW doesn't really work all that well to begin with. I mean, I can play, let's see, I can play stuff like, modern things, like Burnout Paradise and Street Fighter 4 on maximum detail and 60 frames a second constant on my graphics card. It's not even that great. I have an outdated PC. And yet, when I look into Dalaran, I'm looking at 5 to 10 frames a second. So I would suggest that any optimization and bug fixing they're doing for specific platforms is not going all that well. Now, I don't see how many specific issues there could potentially be within a raid dungeon, for instance, that would require massive, widespread testing of hardware. I don't think that's the case. I mean, we've had a couple of issues in the past, say Thorim's room, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was NVIDIA or ATI cards. I think it was NVIDIA. The 8800 series, perhaps, that had an issue with the particular room in question. They would make you lag out. Well, to be honest, why could that have not been tested internally? I mean, it's not that hard to get an 8800 series graphics card and run a series of different rigs. It's a big, complex program. I don't think anyone's going to argue that, but it does seem to me that they could make an effort to test the content, and if they're going to use the PTR, just to do so in a way where all the content isn't spoiled before you're even going in there. I mean, do we really need a bunch of testers going through every hard mode in TOC so everything's basically done before they even start? I don't know about you, but again, Yogg-Saron and Algernon have to come up. Where were the hardware problems in those fights? There weren't any. They were fine. Which is quite impressive considering the graphical bells and whistles that are going off in both. If they're going to test, they should be testing bits of it, not all of it. And right now, while it might appear they're testing bits of it, they are really testing all of it. Honestly. And I don't like that. I don't get along with it. I think it's a really, really, really bad idea. And I'm going to continue to believe that. Go on here. Question, very brief, from Sagnac, Outland EU. He's a level 79 hunter, first-time live listener, and first-time writer ever. Welcome to the fold. He says this very quickly. Hey TB, is 3.3 as good as I have heard? Can I have an eagle drop in? I don't know if I have any. I suppose I might, maybe. Eagle! I have a feeling I might have renamed that. Oh well, we don't have time to find it. Let's get along with it. 3.3 is as good as I don't know, man. It looks good. It certainly looks better than 3.2. That's the thing, right? It's hard to objectively judge just how good a patch is going to be. Because one, of course, if you haven't played the entire thing, then it kind of sucks. But I mean, if you look at the content, you've got one instance that is, by all rights, going to be significantly better than TOC. God, I hope so. 3 5-mans. Again, no objection to 5-mans whatsoever. I have no interest in them, but other people do. That's absolutely fine. Is it going to be better than 3.2? How could it be worse? Really? Let's be honest here. These big patches with the massive, great, stonking instances that everyone has been looking forward to are always a big deal. Now, of course, they've structured the updates a little bit differently to, say, TBC, but I remember the patch for Black Temple, Mount Hyjal. That was a good patch. A lot of good stuff in there. The Sunwell patch, which was, of course, the final big patch of the expansion, which, funnily enough, this 3.3 is supposedly the last big raid instance. That seems very odd, doesn't it? I mean, let's assume for a second, since they're in the middle of testing parts of Icecrown right now. Let's put a ballpark figure down. Let's say that we're looking... I would go for a 2010, early 2010 release for Icecrown, yeah? January. That's my prediction right now. I'll put that down. We could have a pool for it. I think we might do that, actually. That would be kind of cool. We might set up a pool. A $1 buy-in or something along those lines. Oh, gambling! It's alright, you can pay in bison dollars. It's not real money. If you assume that, and you look at the possible Cataclysm release date of, what was it, fall 2010? Something along those lines. I know there was a couple of companies that claim to have the release date. Let's have a look and see if I can find one. They seem to vary wildly, that's the problem. World of Warcraft Cataclysm on Amazon.co.uk. Let's see what they've got for it. Available for pre-order, being released sometime 2010. Right, okay, so if Amazon doesn't have it, then everyone else has basically just made it up. So it's a 2010 release. I don't think it's going to be early 2010, let's be honest. If they're following the sort of same development cycle and strategy, we're looking at late 2010. So, if Icecrown comes in, and then we don't get any more raid content for 7 to 8 months, we're going to be in trouble, let's be honest. So, it's hard to look at this patch as, oh, this is going to cap off the end of the expansion. We don't know that. And to be honest, time frame wise, unless they pull Cataclysm out the hat early, which I really hope they don't. I would like it to be good and polished and all fantastic in every possible way. Then I think there'll be something else. I think there will be a 3.4. As to what it's going to contain, however, well, that is a mystery. You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. I want a song by 3 Inches of Blood. I rather like this. It's called Destroy the Orcs. Enjoy.